so we gotta try to catch up.
Sit down, guys.
Okay, so everyone, thank you. Thank you for the honor of being able to present to you, to fellow Captain Chris and Isaac, on behalf of Greg and Linda. It's a pleasure to address you guys because this is the first time, I guess, in my knowledge that we've done any kind of focused frontline training. Am I right, Chris? Or
I think so, yeah.
okay, so you know, being with you guys for the past couple of months and observing you folks, seeing you in action has been really a privilege, and it's been kind of transformative. God's really been using Frontline to minister in my own journey, my own walk with God. And I'll go a little bit into that. And you think about the word frontline, it's this very potent word, right? What do you think about when you think the word frontline? In a war, right? Well, the first thing that comes up in Google when you type in frontline is this. Kilos, fleas, flea eggs, larvae, ticks, and chewing mice, right?
Wow.
And so, yeah, a very potent thing. And even though not really what you guys do, but on some level, it does have very much in common that frontline is this thing that a lot of people don't want to get involved in because it's a little bit dirty, right? It's a little bit uncomfortable. And even though most people don't notice it, the impact and the effects are very noticeable. Just like frontline, the flea and tick collar, right? So, but as Liz said, when I think of frontline, I think this image beautifully captures it. See that this team, right? They're just about to go over this ridge, and they don't know what's beyond the ridge, but they're all in it, right? They're ready to engage in whatever's needed to be dealt with. And I think that's what it's like every Sunday. You don't know who's going to walk through that door, who's going to come out of that parking lot, who may just want to try to clip you when they're trying to pull into the parking lot. You don't, there's some crazy people out there, right? But you guys all step up and you do this. This is like, for me, one of the most unsexiest ministries, for me, right? Like, it's down there with setup crew and everything else. Right? But nevertheless, one of the most critical and vital parts of the ministry. So I think more than anything, this is really, I have to do this, okay? Can I just present? All right, please sit down. All right, Daddy needs this, okay? Okay?
Simon, conflict resolution, come on.
No, this one's a tough
Create
one.
space.
This is a tough one because
You want a cookie?
it's
Pull
always
you back up.
lose. Okay, so if you could just bear with me, I'll just keep on going. So I think for this image, it really captures the true essence of Frontline. Rather than fighting and providing security and safety, which we're getting training for today, 99% of the time we're representing something bigger than ourselves, right? And you think about the U.S. military, this is their job primarily when they're in the Middle East. They're there to build relationships, morale, right? To really correct people's understanding of why we're there, right? So a lot of times they're going out into the rural provinces, right? In Afghanistan, Iraq, and really interacting with the local people like this. And that's what you guys do every single time when you're out there wearing the blue shirts. You're representing Jesus Christ, not just Metro, but you're representing what Christianity is. You're really setting people straight, despite what they hear in the media, what the essence of Christianity is all about. And I think this has really kind of been the real transformative journey for me. And that in all my 10 years at Metro, I've never once volunteered for Frontline or done anything Frontline-ish. Did not like to welcome newcomers. That's just not my personality. I'm like the other majority of people at Metro that have that grand central station type of mentality, just walk through, in and out. And my wife knows, like, I'm an introvert, so I don't like meeting new people. Even like Anthony, back in our single days, I didn't go out and date and things like that. He dragged me out there. We did the wingman thing for a while. That was great. Right? Like, it was just all kind of like, why bother, right? I just like my isolation, what Peter was talking about, the porcupine thing. I love my technology. Everything I needed is right here at my fingertips. Why go out? So I'm a bit shy, right? Even at all these years in church, I just didn't see a need to do that. And I think that's really how God worked in my heart. Like the whole thing with Frontline, as you guys may have remembered from the survey that we took in October, the newcomer experience was the number one thing identified as the greatest thing that we needed to improve as a church. And I just couldn't help but to feel that God just really kind of moved in me. And I think in our Frontline ministry in that way, say, hey, let's really try to close the gap here, because the first impression people should have when they come to Metro is they should feel this is heaven. This is God's world now, right? So let's go back to the fundamental essence of how we can really step up on our game and ask this question of ourselves. You guys saw the video that I sent you guys during the week about the whole customer experience and how best brands do it, like the hotel and Starbucks, and how JetBlue and all them do it. Okay, well, check your email. It's there, Liz. There's a thing that you want to capture what's going on in the world today, especially in the world of customer experience. All these companies are jumping on this bandwagon, asking this question: how is it that people, our customers, just any human being, want to be treated? So, guesses.
Golden rule.
The golden rule. What is the golden rule?
Try to to yourself.
Right. But now, do people actually feel like this? Do people feel like gold all the time? It's usually one or the other, right? And I think everything in between can be pretty much ignored, because I think people just normally feel like, oh, you know, I'm okay. But people really remember when you're treated like this or when you're treated like that. And that any person that comes to our church had either this kind of week, right? Or maybe one time out of 100 had this kind of week. And that's what you guys are dealing with, that baggage that comes in through that front door. And that's what we have to try to turn around with God's help, right? Through His power. So, value and belonging. The two words I hope that come out at the end of this, if there's anything that you can remember. And I'm just going to kind of talk maybe for about 20 minutes, but then the rest of the time I'm going to have you guys work in pairs, try to work through some of these real life scenarios, things that I've encountered at Metro that I want you to try to problem solve, and then we're going to come up here and present a little bit later how you would have approached that situation. So it's going to be fun. But these two words that I hope that come out of the exercise that we do at the end, for the person that you're interacting with, is that they feel valuable and they belong here. Right? And I think that's going to be challenged, because I think sometimes we don't even feel like we belong here, right? To be honest. Now, getting back to the whole corporate thing. If you were to walk into a store, say a high-end store, and you were going to drop 100 G's, right? How would you expect to be treated? What do you think that retail experience would be like? So you got to use your creativity, your imagination. You have this big wad of cash sticking out here, or maybe keep it in the front, I don't know. Like, whatever. And you're like walking in, I got this whole wad I'm going to whip out, and it could be yours, right? How do you think the people in that store would respond to?
They'd be walking by your side and show you where everything is.
Right, you would have a personal escort, someone to do that.
Personal shopper.
Yeah, a personal shopper that would help you spend that money.
They would feed me and wine and dine.
Right, okay. They would give you food,
And
drinks, champagne. What else did you expect? Right? Someone might want to whip out a piano, right, and start playing for you. Right? Someone might want to run a truck, so whatever you buy, it can be shipped to your home. Right? People will have a Rolls Royce rented and then have you chauffeured home. Like, companies will do pretty crazy things for you. You guys all seen that scene in Pretty Woman, right? Mm-hmm. Julia Roberts goes back in with Richard Gere into that restaurant, that store where she was kind of kicked out of. Right? What was this? Anyone remember the scene? Like, what was the interaction that was going on between Richard Gere and the sales guy?
Huge mistake. Big. Huge.
Right. Made that sales lady
Best
feel
scene
like.
in the whole
I didn't watch it, so I'm going to take
So why would they treat you like that? Why would people whip out the caviar and the drinks and the things like
You got
that?
something they want.
Right. They want something you have. Right. Ultimately, companies want to be profitable, and that's why they're focusing on all this stuff. In fact, in that movie, Richard Gere was saying, "Some more sucking up. You have not sucked up to me enough. I want some more schmoozing." And the guy was like complimenting like his clothes and gave him his tie and everything. It was, I mean, that's the world, and that's the way they run. That's why they do it. But why do we do it as Christians? Right? If you think about why they do it, think about how much we spend in the United States on just travel and tourism. So I'm talking about the hospitality industry, but I'm just talking about travel and tourism. How much money do you think was spent last year in this area?
3 billion.
It's higher than that.
50 billion. 10 billion.
It's 1.5 trillion.
Wow.
Right. When you think about the gross domestic product of the GDP of our country, which is about like 13 trillion, 80% of that is just in services, products and services. I mean, 80%. Like, our country focuses on this thing called customer loyalty, customer retention, customer experience. So you go into an Apple store or any kind of store, like, we're one of the countries, we're probably in the top 3 or 4 that do it the best. And that's why I think the typical churchgoer almost expects a little bit more because they get that everywhere where they go, where they're willing to drop money. But at church, we don't approach them with that kind of expectation. So when you think about hospitality industry, where it really originally got its start, the hoteling business, is in monasteries. Did you guys know that? Just Google that and I found that out. I was surprised to learn that myself. During the Middle Ages, when travelers traveled from country to country, mostly to visit religious sites, it was the monasteries that opened their doors to take in these travelers. Right? They weren't there to charge money and things like that like they do today, roll out the red carpet. But even as a precursor to that, in the Roman Empire, right, and a lot of cultures practice hospitality, largely within their own people group, but it was actually the Christians, right, that reached out beyond their sects, beyond their caste systems, to foreigners, to people who were the poor, the powerless, that really brought the definition of hospitality to the next level. And that's why you see in the Middle Ages with monasteries and everything else, this redefinition of what hospitality really means. And more importantly, it's a gift of the Holy Spirit, right? So anyone that claims that they own the rights on hospitality, they have to go back to the Bible and really understand who really is the one that makes it truly powerful. And that's God. And that's why I think part of my story here with you guys is very humbling, because I'm not a hospitality guy. I really am not. Really joining you guys this past summer, just kind of shadowing you. I don't even have a Metro Frontline shirt, but I think part of me just kind of shadowing was just really ministering to me to say, as a normal churchgoer, God, just like use me, no title, no whatever. I just want to be here just to welcome people and just help people feel valued and that they belong here. And really God opened my eyes. It was really amazing in that I almost could see into people's hurts, like the stuff that they bring into church. And when I even just look in the sanctuary where I interact or converse with them, it's just like, wow, God really guided you here. Like for some of these, but not for all of them, but for some of them, it was like you could just sense that God really wants you here today. And then when you follow up or talk to them later, it's very much confirmed with the stuff that some of these people go through in their life. And when they're interacting with some of you guys, it's just like this really well orchestrated team effect. And I share it with the comments that come in the newcomer cards. I mean, these people are really deeply impacted by what you guys do, and through the worship. It's just the whole experience I think God beautifully coordinates together. And I'm just so humbled to be a part of it, because I'm like, oh God, I can actually see these people the way you do. When before I would just go to church and do my thing and just go home, right? It was just kind of like a thing for me. But now I really feel like I love the church more than I've ever loved the church before because of that insight. So know that your gifting for hospitality comes directly from God. And what is it? So the Webster definition is friendly reception and treatment of guests and strangers, right? Or the quality or disposition of receiving and treating guests and strangers in a warm, friendly, and generous way, right? That's the Webster's definition. But God's definition is not just the foreigner and the stranger, but even your enemy, right? Which culture teaches that you can actually extend warmth and love to your enemy? And that is the power of the gospel, right? What Jesus Christ reconciled onto himself. And that's what we represent when we wear these blue shirts to these people who just feel like crap all week. They feel like they've been told all week that you're not good enough, you don't belong here. There's just no security out there for people. But here, you have a home. Here you can be saved. So, sharing with God's people who are in need, practice hospitality. It's not just me telling you. This is Scripture. Right? This is the Bible telling us and encouraging us to do this. And I really would encourage you guys, very much so, to, before you come to church, before you put on that shirt, it's almost like your holy robe, like in the tradition of the Old Testament. When they would put on their garments, they bathe themselves and go through the ritual, the Levitical traditions. You guys are almost putting on the superhero outfit, which gives you the special power, not the clothing itself, but it's just like how you prepare yourself spiritually for this very, I would almost call it a sacrament, and being like the temple priest that welcomed the people into worship with God. And that is what you set them up with when they walk into the sanctuary. The other scripture says, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. So imagine for a second, you were to check out of this planet and enter into the pearly gates, enter heaven, what kind of frontline team do you think will be there waiting for you? Right? What do you think that experience would be like? You know, when people who have those near-death experiences, most times it's angels, right, that are there ready to welcome you. It's deceased loved ones. It's usually an experience when they come back. It's so full of love, right, that their hearts are so filled with that they just almost can't wait to go back. Right? And you guys are doing that. You guys are, and I wish you could see what I see sometimes when I see you guys in action. It's really such a beautiful thing. I almost literally see God's anointing just come down on Frontline. It really is very much like that from these people who just come in. It's like welcome, you know, welcome back almost. Like I have no idea who you are. I've never seen you before, but like I'm so glad to see you again, right? And that is really kind of like the cool thing for me when I just sit and observe you guys in action. Just that you guys actually enjoy it too, right? Some ministries and things like that, people feel like, oh, I gotta do this, I do that. But there really is something special about you guys that I really get so pumped up about, that like, wow, God, this is not the setup crew. This is not the ministry I thought of. That was like, you know, the toe cheese, and you think about the body of Christ, like the toes of the body. Like, God, this is your heart. Frontline is your heart, because when you walked out there, right, when you read the gospel, Jesus was doing frontline all the time, right? He was out there and the crowds would follow him, but then he would be able to stop and he would be able to call out an individual and say, you know what, I'm gonna eat with you tonight. Or like you have a healing that I want to perform on you right now. And that's like moving in the spirit, right? And that's like what you guys each have the ability to do, and I see that you do, which is so cool, because when God himself, when Jesus reaches out to the poor, the powerless, the socially unacceptable, you guys are in that same spirit, right? When Jesus took off his outer robe and washed the feet of his disciples, set the tone of what it meant to be a servant, to really say, I'm here to serve you. And you guys, more than anyone in the church, in any ministry, model that, like from the first impression that people get when they see your smile, and you open that door, when you're out there directing traffic. Just like, why are these people doing this? There's no monetary profit, right, they can gain from me in doing this. They must be representing something beyond this natural world, right? And you guys are evidence that God exists. So thank you so much for allowing me to serve alongside with you and doing all this. And I hope this will be very much fun, because now I'm going to integrate some of the Mercedes stuff that we do for our own people when it comes to just teaching people how to relate to one another. And I'm so glad we did Jay's session right now, because a lot of this is a little bit of a repeat, so we don't need to go so deep into this. We can almost go right to the exercises. But I want to really impress upon you this whole idea of value and belonging. You guys have the power, and I would say even the anointing, to create these experiences for people when they come through those doors. And I want you not to be shy about being intentional and taking the initiative to lead in creating something out of nothing. And that's the beauty of God. He can create something out of nothing. And He's the same God in you. He can do that too by doing this. Right? So listen, and we already talked about some of the ways we can listen. Right? It's the eye contact, the nodding, right? Clarifying, confirming. So stuff that all we covered in the last session. Empathize. Now this is a really tricky one, because my wife says I still haven't quite got this one down. Right? But with God's help, I hope you will help me. What are some ways that we can show empathy for people? And it's tricky for us because the contact we have sometimes is so quick. Ideas.
Acknowledge them.
Acknowledge them. How can you acknowledge, hi, I'm new to this church.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay, thank you. All right, so extending them a greeting.
Or if they look like they're lost and not sure
Yes,
where
the
they're going.
clueless look, and you guys have seen that,
Kind
right?
of ask them what they were looking for, and when they tell you, guide them to where they need to be.
Right, ask them what their needs are. I like this one thing that someone once did, and this actually could be really good with conflict resolution too. There's this guy who I know who used to be like in the hippie movement, all doped up on drugs and things like that, and he got his life clean, and he became a street evangelist right after that. and he went out street evangelizing. This is in Venice Beach in California. He ran into this guy that was on drugs, right? He was high, and the guy came up to him and he said, "Oh, what do you want?" And he came back to him and said, "Hey, I just want to share Jesus with you. Is that okay?" And the guy who was high just started becoming violent and just started cursing out Jesus and said, "Why are you doing this?" And just literally, he spat on him. He spit. And the guy's response, the guy who was the street evangelist, he just looked at him like this. Just he just loved him. He said, "Guys, when all else fails, when there's no words you can say, you can love him with your eyes. You can just love him, Christ love, just through your eyes." Because I say, eyes are the windows to the soul, right? So if they don't see you, you don't want them to see you. Let them see Jesus inside you. And he said, and then after he just got done with his cursing and ranting, he was like, "Why are you standing here like this? Why?" And he says, "Because I love you. I just love you because God loves me, loves you, and you need to know that." And then he led them in the sinner's prayer after that. And I think, that's like one of the coolest things, that if you ever get the joy, the pleasure, the privilege to experience that with another person, to share God's love and bring them home into the kingdom, that is jubilation in heaven, right? That you get to reflect back, that you sense that God allows you to partake in and sharing that with that person. So when all else fails, love him with your eyes. And I love the one quote down here. You know David Wilkerson, the founder of the Times Square Church, who passed away a couple years ago. He did this whole ministry reaching out to New York City gangs. And the one guy, Nicky Cruz, is like this traveling speaker now. He was actually one of the leaders of the gang. And one of the most famous things in the book that David Wilkerson writes, Crossing the Switchblade, when he was reaching out to him, Cruz came to him and threatened to kill him. And David Wilkerson responded, "You can cut me up into 1,000 pieces, I'll lay them out on the street, and every piece would still love you." And that is what Jesus did for us. You know, they cut him, they pierced him, and every bit of him still said, "I love you." And that's what we get to model every Sunday to the people that come in through those doors. So empathy, part of it's us, but really is God's love through us that's being communicated. And finally, one of the last parts of LEAD is the add value part. This is the fun part because this is the part where you get to be the most creative. And when we talk about making an impression, part of it is you co-creating with God this lasting, memorable impression you want to leave with this person. So when you think of some of the ways you can add value and delight, and maybe you guys have already done it. Some examples, ideas, ways that you've made sort of an impact on the newcomer or churchgoer.
Iced coffee.
Iced coffee. That's why when they come to church, they don't go to the sanctuary. That definitely is a differentiator. Anything else?
Also to invite them to to talk further, try to get to know them more.
Yeah, creating an opportunity to engage in them further beyond the Sunday service, right? That's that doesn't happen to just anybody when they go to any church. What's another way that you guys can add value?
I think one of the people met another newcomer and knew that they were looking for an UGG, and because I was an UGG leader and I was there, they just brought me over.
Oh.
So I think finding other people that would match up with their interests or what they want to know about.
Okay. Wow. See, you guys have it in you. You guys are veterans. You guys have done this. So some of the things you could do, just what I found, especially after reading communication cards, what seems to resonate with people is when you walk them all the way to the sanctuary from outside to their seat. That's a wow, right? When you tell them about when it was your first time coming to Metro, sometimes a lot of them are stressed out, right? They come to a church where they don't know anybody, but then you share with them, you let them know, I was there too at one point, right? And then you reassure them and you tell them and they say, hey, look for me after service. You know, that's a way you can impress on them. Oh, I pull this plenty of times. I have them send themselves an email from my phone. I go, oh, you know what? You're a single person. I gotta connect you with Josh Rivera. Could I get your email address? I give them my phone, and they write their own email address from my inbox, And this way, I have a copy of their email address, and it creates an opportunity for me to follow up with them, like that Monday, right? It's like it's just like these little different things. Like I don't know if there's someone here. There's someone who serves in our church that started coming to our church because someone followed up with them the same day they wrote out the communication cards. Like he got an email from Pastor Peter that same day. He was like, well, no church does that. That's crazy. That's back when Abe was doing the communication cards. So just like even the small things like that create like an impression. All right, so I will show this one video about the Southwest flight attendant, and this is what a normal guy, he doesn't get paid more to do than what he's doing right now, created a memory for a bunch of people on the plane.
Good evening, folks. Welcome aboard Southwest Airlines Flight 372, service to Oklahoma City. Those of you that have flown us before know that we do things a little bit differently here on Southwest. Some of us tell jokes, some of us sing, some of us just stand there and look beautiful. I, unfortunately, can do none of those. So here's the one thing that I do know how to do. We're going to shake things up a little bit. I need a little audience participation. Otherwise, this is not going to go over well at all. So here's what I need, especially you guys in the front, because you know what's coming. All right, I need a beat. All right. All I need you to do is stomp and clap, and I'm going to do the rest because I've had 5 flights today, and I just cannot do the regular boring announcement again. Otherwise, I'm going to put myself to sleep. So, you guys with me? All right. So, give me a stomp, clap, stomp, clap. Come on, stomp, clap, stomp, clap. They don't beat there. There you go. Keep that going. This is Flight 372 on SWA. The flight attendants on board serving you today. Teresa in the middle, David in the back. My name is David, and I'm here to tell you that. Shortly after takeoff, first things first, then soft drinks and coffee to quench your thirst. But if you want another kind of drink, then just holler. Alcoholic beverages will be $4. If a Monster energy drink is your plan, that'll be $3. Then you get the whole can. We won't take your cash, you gotta pay with plastic. If you have a coupon, then that's fantastic. We know you're ready to get the new places. Open up the bed, put away the suitcases. Carry on items, go under the seat. In front of you, so nothing you are sitting by your feet. If you have a seat or a roll with the XM, we're gonna talk to you, so you might as well accept it. You gotta help evacuate in case we need you. If you don't want to, then we're gonna retreat you. Before we leave, our advice is put away your electronic devices. Fasten your seatbelt, then put your trays up. Press the button to make the seat back raise up. Sit back, relax, have a good time. It's almost time to go, so I'm done with the rhyme. Thank you for the fact that I wasn't ignored. This is Southwest Airlines. Welcome aboard. Thank you very much for
So you're just thanking them and saying you will not get this on United Airlines. So did he make an impression on those people that took that flight?
Yeah.
Especially when the bar is set very low in the airline industry. When something like that happens, it just evokes like a delight in you. And be careful with creativity, you know, what you can do. So I'm going to hand out exercises, right, or scenarios I should call it. I want you to pair up, right? Find somebody who you can pair up with. And I want you to commiserate or congregate for about 3 minutes and come up with a solution of how you would handle this in the spirit of adding value and creating delight. Okay, there you go.
Can we be in teams of 3?
You can be in teams of 3. Yeah, that's fine. Take 3 minutes. Okay, and I have 2 more exercises in case anyone needs an extra one. Okay, I think we're
If
good.
everybody's paired off, we have one that next week, we just we have something.
First, read your exercise.
Yes,
and
I
then-
speak on behalf of me and Gio, the dynamic duo now. So,
Oh, boy.
conflict resolution. So a woman comes up to us after hearing the sermon about serving the poor. She wants to get involved and asks us how. What would we do? So Gio had mentioned that, if we were together, that Gio would say that he's in Jack and that he would, get her information and then contact her, follow up, and I had basically said just to ask her, well, what kind of thing in particular she wanted to do as pertains to serving. And so yeah, that's it. I mean, get her information.
And just kind of share with her my experience of things that we've done in Jack as far as prison ministry and the garden and putting food for the kids in the schools and whatnot. And so just to give a little broad overview of what Jack is, but that if she wanted something a little bit more in detail and personalized, if I could get her information, then I would pass it on to Sue and have Sue then contact her and bring her in for some type of orientation so you get a better understanding of what exactly we do.
Okay, very good.
Number and all that good stuff.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Power twins, activate.
Okay, guys, what do you guys think? Is there anything that you thought about that could have been done better, or you liked what they got?
Don't go against us.
It's awesome.
We were going
Okay.
to have lasagna and rice and beans.
Right. Oh yeah, I was saying about that, and then I said that she said that she would like lasagna more than rice and beans.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I think Kai said he wanted.
Okay, go Todd. Paul, whatever. Serious.
You're giving the nonverbal communication, Kai. I don't know.
So I'm with Paul. The one I have is first thing you see is a family walking into the school and the mother talks to you. My son has special needs. He's 5 years old. I'm wondering what to do. So the first thing I would do, I'll talk to her and I'll introduce her to Pastor Shirley, which is the pastor of Children's Ministry, or Jenny. And I'll introduce them and explain to her who Pastor Shirley is or Jenny is, and explain our children's ministry to them. And I guess from there I'll just let Pastor Shirley talk to them and explain what kind of service we have for the children's ministry.
Yeah, now what if Pastor Shirley's not around? Because often she's not.
Oh, Jenny will be there. Usually either Pastor Shirley or Jenny will be there.
Okay.
So if both of them are there, one of the core leaders will be there, there to pretty much run their ministry that day. So I will introduce them to whoever the core team member is there.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts, comments? All right, I probably would just add one more, that give yourself permission sometimes to excuse yourself from frontline. That might be one of the most significant experiences you might have, that family will ever have. So if you need to go with them all the way to check in, and then
Exactly. Like
bring them
I'll
to the
walk them
sanctuary.
to children ministry and introduce them, and then once they got introduced, then I'll let whoever, like Pastor Shirley or Jenny, take over from there.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, thank you, Kai. All right, anybody else?
I love that.
All right, head up.
Okay. So we have number 6. You see a middle-aged man standing by himself by the refreshment area. He is just hanging there and doesn't seem to want to go into service. What do you do?
That never happens.
Never happens. We were actually saying that there's actually some men that go to Metro and just never go into service anyway. So what do we do with them? What do we do anytime? So we would go over, we would talk to them, make sure they have everything they want at the refreshment table, ask them how long they've been coming, what their experience has been, things like that. Maybe actually just get to know them a little bit, and then ask them if they need directions to anywhere in particular, maybe offer to go into service with them. If service has already happened, you've been in, you can tell them what it's about and why you found it compelling, or that kind of thing. What else? Oh, I would get someone else as well, because I feel like I can chit chat with the best of anybody, but I think that some people, if they tend to be a little bit more aloof and don't really want to talk to a lot of people, a different kind of personality other than mine is usually received better. And I recognize that, so I would maybe flag a male or someone else around to like add some diversity to the conversation instead of me just being all perky.
Soften the blow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other helpful hints, tips for Heather?
Juan and I will stop hanging out at the coffee.
She didn't mention any names.
You said middle-aged man,
Okay, so thank you, Heather. Yeah, and that is that could be a safety issue. I mean, because that's kind of weird. You know, a middle-aged person by himself, and there's obviously a church service going on, just standing by the refreshment area. That's shady, if you ask me. So, if we don't know them, especially. So really probe. Ask why. Ask why that they're there. Really try to find out. Okay. Good. Who else?
This.
All right. Oh, this is my favorite one. Okay, good. This is my favorite scenario. Let's see.
Oh,
Why is it your favorite scenario?
That's okay. It looks like we got number 9.
Yeah.
There is a couple who are in their 30s who walk into the church and is about to walk right by you. You want this encounter to be as if they were the only people you would greet all day. You want to make this one count and make a lasting impression. What do you do? Marilyn and I were partners on this one. First of all, we said we would introduce ourselves, see if they were actually new to Metro, and if so, we would give a little bit of a tour to give them an idea of the different areas of Metro, such as the restrooms, the children areas, and the different areas of the ministry, as well as also guide them to where the service is. And also, when they come out after service, if we're able to see them again as they exit the service, to guide them to the quick stop area, as well as if they are available, to introduce them to different leaders of different ministries that might help them feel comfortable with Metro in different ministries of hopefully different age groups for them. But that's, well, such as small groups and things like that.
Okay, good. Thanks, Liz. Anything else? Any other tips, things that you would add to that? Okay. Yeah, the reason why that's my favorite one, because what you just mentioned, Liz, is so true. When you find them later after service or see them the following week, I would say half the time, those people who I feel like drawn to ask that question or to kind of stalk them a little bit, like they just, it's like, there's just so much going on in their life that really God really wanted them, guided them specifically to come to our church. And that is where two or more are gathered. That is definitely one of those Jesus moments. So I would encourage you guys, definitely do that and use your feelers on that. Anyone else? Here we go. Oh, wow. All right.
So Rachel and Lena had a case, a woman comes out of the service in tears and goes into the gym area and is crying in the corner. So we thought that we would go to this person and try to be approachable, and see, are they okay? Are you okay? Is there anything we can do to help? And you could also ask, can I offer you a tissue and pray for you? And if that person happens to be one alone and just have their own time, probably also escalation might be another option for a pastor or someone else who could be in the prayer team, so that maybe they have a better way of approaching person and be there for any prayer or something like that.
I'm glad you closed with that. That is, it can't be prayer. Like the opportunity to bless you to pray with another person. I mean, as Peter shared today, that's happened to me just once. I don't know, has that happened? Just curious, anyone in frontline had the opportunity just to pray with somebody in their frontline capacity? Can you maybe share, like, what was that like?
Well, I wasn't exactly serving on frontline at that particular
Well, you maybe,
moment.
you interacted with someone and all of a
But,
sudden you felt led to pray for them.
But it was a beautiful thing because I was heading out the door to get my kids, and a lady came to me. She seemed upset about something, and she basically said, "Are you part of the prayer team?" And I'm like, "I'm not officially part of the prayer team, but I would be willing to say a prayer for you. And what the beautiful thing about it was is we sat and prayed together, and she came back to me a week later, and she said, thank you, because the prayers were answered. And that just felt so overwhelming for me, because that was something I wasn't accustomed to, but the power of it, that she was new, fairly new to Metro, so that even made it more powerful, that prayer from somebody she didn't even know, and it was fairly new to her in the area.
Okay, how about you, Marilyn?
I think it's a blessing because you know that person truly feels God's presence when you actually breathe the extension of God's love to them. When you pray for them, you're given an opportunity to be heard when they're telling you what they need in their prayer requests, as well as listening with Jesus' ears is really important when you're asking to pray for them. So I felt that was it's a blessing for me because it's also a way I see that God is actually working in partnership with us when I pray for this person or for the person.
Yeah, and anyone else have stories of prayer?
I actually do. There was actually a time when I was doing frontline actually that day, and I had on my frontline shirt and everything, and there was a family behind me, and one of the people asked me, tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, can you pray for me? And I said the same thing, I'm not in the prayer ministry, but if you need prayer, I can do the prayer if you want me to do the prayer. And so then I prayed, and the next week, the person who was injured didn't have the injured part on their body anymore. After that week, and they actually came up to me and told me that as well.
The reason why people go to church is a good point, James, because there's a need, right? There's a need that they want to have addressed, and I think that's what I want you to feel. When David Hosang shared last week, when he decided to get into ministry, he said, I want to be a part of what God's doing. That's the reason why he wanted to go into ministry. And I have to say, God is doing something at Metro, and you guys deciding to be in Metro is you deciding to be part of God's blessing, His work that's going on. So don't be shy about reaching out to people and initiating prayer. So it looks like that's about all we have the time for. So thank you for everything, and I just want to say that there's going to be a security walkthrough in October. So don't worry if you didn't get the security walkthrough stuff today. It'll happen in October, and there'll be a video done. So thank you, everyone. All right, you're done for today.
Closing prayer, kind of all together.